Up next, it's going to be dooi and it's going to be nosfa. My name is Ketchup and I'm joined on the desk by ZSX. And yeah, there's quite a lot of potential just information, I think, to gather from this series. You know, we have nosfa, who started off like immediately, no acceleration, full top speed, and he was kind of like, you know, really in the process of fully cementing himself as top 3 Americas in Stage 1. And then kind of as Stage 1 started to progress, we started to see players like Saigib start to kind of return to form and introduce that level of competition. And that's just, it's only been, I think, even more exaggerated in Stage 2 because now dooi exists.
Yes.
Dooi moved in from the relegation, and although there were players out there, that there's no mystery that before Quake Pro League, dooi was officially a retired player. He just missed
That
competing.
sounds so insulting, but I know it's actually a factual thing.
Oh, he wasn't retired by anybody. He chose to bow out. Right? He chose to bow out from competition.
Yeah.
But I think he just missed it. I truly think, like, I spoke to dooi
It's
at
a passion
QuakeCon.
game.
He just missed competing too much and decided to come back. And I think initially there was some concerns because I remember the conversations I had with dooi at QuakeCon where he mentioned that he was a bit reserved at first because he doesn't want to compete unless he's able to play at the top of his game. And at the time, he was kind of de-rusting and getting back into it. And you know, the inclusion of Time Limit Duel, Quake Champions was dooi's kind of real big Quake. So Time Limit Duel wasn't as common. It was round-based and all that stuff. And you would never have guessed any of that because in Stage 2, he's been looking absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and then maybe it's one of those things where he's more impacted by nerves and the pressure, and as you say, like coming back, and it's more of a, he still wants to compete at the highest level, but it's not the be-all and end-all now. Maybe it's just taking the shackles off a little bit, because we have seen like a rejuvenated and refreshed player who's definitely improved and changed his playstyle somewhat. In that, I mean, everyone always knew that dooi was one of these passive defensive players. It was kind of a running joke when you were kind of commentating or specking dooi that he was going to just like try and grind out a 1-0 victory or whatever it is. But now he's showing all sorts of kind of mayhem, really. He's aggressive, he's showing good shots, and he's actually really enjoyable to watch.
It almost feels like we see that and say that time and time again with a player that you're not as familiar with in Quake Champions, that they're known for a specific style, and the more they play and the more they compete, that style tends to bloom. You know, Razy was known for being, Razy's just really aggressive, he's just this crazy aggressive player. And then as Razy starts to play more and more, you know, his kind of repertoire starts to expand.
Exactly, particularly with these newer, younger players to the scene, that they need that time to embed and evolve their game, whereas obviously people coming through that might have had a more expansive history in terms of Quake Live and whatever it is, they would have evolved to that point already. And so yeah, I think it is, you're right, finding their feet and deciding what works for them. And so obviously they get to that point where they're good enough to compete on a certain style, and then once you get to that point, that's when you need to evolve, and that's what we've seen with dooi.
Now, nosfa, we've talked about the slight inconsistencies from nosfa, but by no means is he out for the count. When he plays well, he plays exceptionally well, and he was just one of those players that just started Stage 1 just full out there and ready to go.
I think, yeah, for me, he's one of these players that I think nobody wants to play because you just don't know what you're going to get. You might get like the world's best aim coming at you for 30 minutes, or you might get someone who forgets how to time for 30 minutes. But he's up in the top 10. I think he's 6th or 7th for a reason. Like, he's got some amazing skill, and as you say, like, it's been a bit inconsistent, but when he hits stride, he really hits stride.
Now, I've said earlier in the night that I'm excited for this series purely on the basis that is the element of nosfa, when if he's playing extremely well, it's like you're looking at a top tier player. But dooi's recent climb and being like way better than I think a lot of people even expected, because you know dooi's good, but he's been playing so good, it's still managing to surprise a lot of people. That if both players are on their top form today, we could get one of the most like electric and exciting series that we've seen in Pro League so far. And that might be amplified by the picks and bans, which I believe we have ready to see what's getting picked and ready to go. As you can see, starting things off on Blood Covenant, nosfa was able to select that one, so we got the Visor versus the Ranger, and removing the Nyx from dooi, I like that. Like, I think that's a really, really good play for him, because he is known when he wants to slow the game down to a snail's pace, he will. And if he's got Nyx, you're in for an absolute nightmare experience.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions for me in this matchup is dooi's defensiveness going to counteract nosfa somewhat? And even though nosfa could be playing the better Quake, is he going to run into these traps with a dooi? And as you say, removing the Nyx means nosfa has that slight upper hand, but nevertheless, Visor is an equally powerful champion, and you can play defensive with him because of the fact that if you get that piercing sight up, you can take up really strong positions and just manipulate your opponent very well. As we see on Molten Fools, dooi loves Scalebearer, and he actually plays it extremely well. And taking away Slash and nosfa means he can't play as aggressive as he wants to sometimes.
And finally, Veil of Nath. dooi is quite well known for a Q. We were talking about this earlier.
I don't like Q. I don't like Q. I respect the pick, and Veil's probably the best map. That and maybe Blood Run for him, because there's a lot of choke points, corridors to fight in, and when you've got those grenades in those areas, they just cause such mayhem. But also, the Ison is good on that, because you can. There's a couple of split levels as well where you can almost hide your turret and it can deal some good damage. It also allows you some good information as well.
Yeah, Veil of Nath, definitely one of those maps that gives you one of the more, I think, map-specific champion pools.
Yes.
Yeah, there are definitely...
It's a very particular map, for sure.
You won't see a Death Knight on any other map, really, for the most part, anyway. That does change when we go into LAN, obviously, when the picks become a little bit more skew-if. But we're going into our first map here. We're going to see if nosfa's going to conquer dooi, or if doi's just air of dominance will continue, and he's putting himself straight into just this upper echelon of the Americas with the world's shortest retirement. No, that goes to Garpy, actually, I think.
Yeah,
that's definitely Garpy.
But off the bat there, we see the biggest weakness of dooi for me is his aim. In that, like, he's not bad, but missing two relatively simple rails that would have put him so far in control in the first half of this map. But now we're seeing the strength of dooi. Positioning, patience, and awareness. Not afraid to play slow, not afraid to keep control of the mid-ground, keep control of that rail.
Now, while that was a completely free rail, that rail was so insanely fast. nosfa, I mean, that he knows that had to be a piercing sight, so he's going to be kind of half-timing the piercing sight cooldown in his head now. He's got a good gauge for how long it's going to be. And now we're going to reset to a bit more of a, I suppose, standard situation here. He knows the piercing sight's not going to be available. The orb is ready if it needs to be, but so far, dooi, no reason to overextend, and he's going to let the entire cycle go through for the heavy.
Yep. And doi's just going to play methodical now, taking those time vials, making positioning, making sure nosfa does not get on the rail, because that's probably his most impactful weapon, and definitely what he needs to get on top of dooi for sure. There's very little he can do as long as dooi keeps control of this area, keeps control of the banana, and just maintains distance.
There's the element of, if he controls banana, he also controls some vials.
Exactly.
Which is one of the extra elements here.
And so you can see the patience of dooi, like not even wanting to push onto the Mega, because that's the one area where nosfa can force a fight.
He's sitting tight, looking for a potential other rail to come through. Doesn't necessarily need it just yet. And you can really see this game plan. He hasn't even needed to use a piercing sight yet. Like, you know, it's 8 seconds away from being available, but who cares? He's hit 2 rails in a row. As long as nosfa, again, doesn't have access to a rail, this is purely an uphill battle. This is advantage for dooi so far.
Yep, and already 2 minutes to go, and good rail. dooi just doing what dooi does.
Oh, I wonder if he knows the Mega was not taken, though. Because he dropped down, obviously, maybe trying to just stack up a little bit. But from that far away, I must admit, I'm not sure if he has...
No, he won't have any idea.
It's too far.
Yeah, he will have no idea. But nosfa dropping, perhaps anticipating that dooi would be pushing in there, nevertheless is able to get his stack back up, and as you can see, it's pretty much even keel now.
I think that's going to somewhat mess up with doi's timing on the Mega. If he thinks he took it immediately.
True, very true. We might see that coming out in his favour.
This has been quite a 3 minutes of nosfa just trying to get the rail, but you look at the fact that dooi, he is not afraid to literally have a 1-0 game.
But no, and to be fair, it's somewhat difficult in nosfa's situation, because it is easy to get frustrated and try and force something, and that's what dooi thrives on, is you making an over-aggressive play. And that's kind of what's happening here with nosfa. He didn't need to do this.
Looking at potential rails. And the rails have been really good so far. Now, this could finally be the opportunity.
He gets the rail.
In and out, and the rail's been taken. It took 3.5 minutes, but he finally got what he was looking for. And now the second objective, the heavy. And that orb has been used. nosfa doesn't want to challenge. Yeah, because if we put all that effort into getting a rail, go towards heavy and die, and then respawn, we haven't got rail anymore.
Exactly. So yeah, it was good play from nosfa on the counter there. I do feel that he could have used his Dire Orb in an earlier situation potentially to get aggressive, but ultimately dooi was hitting enough rails for nosfa not to feel confident enough to do so. However, I do feel that the Mega and light armor combos is a better position to be in, so nosfa will get the stack.
And now dooi retreating once more. And you know that piercing sight's going to get used for that. Ooh, we caught angle of the rail angle there, but nosfa didn't actually pull the trigger.
He won't have heard that sight either, so this is dangerous for nosfa.
Ooh, entry damage. Ah, I couldn't quite get the combo for the rail. That would have definitely hurt nosfa significantly.
Yeah, good patience by dooi. Nearly a great trap there. But again, missing the follow-up rail.
Ah, it's finally a rail that is unreturned when it comes to dooi. nosfa in a position to maybe chase this one down. And ooh, potentially tries to rocket jump. Almost like half a play, half an attempt to get up there. But it's very same. 5 minutes ticked off. And now, this has been, I think, one of the more unorthodox Blood Covenants we've seen so far. There really has been a little bit more against the grain. It's been heavily focused on just dooi being as hard to pinpoint as he possibly can.
Nice by nosfa there to rocket jump up, A, to cut off the choke point, and B, to take away those time battles, buying him a little bit more time without that piercing sight up. But you're right, it has been really unorthodox, and ultimately, nosfa has played well to maintain his discipline and not succumb to dooi's traps.
I feel like this kind of play is the exact kind of play that, you know, if dooi were to be doing this in like the everyday regular ranked, he'd probably just be rinsing people with this, because like
there's no way people in the normal ranked game would not push in for a rail right now, you know.
Absolutely, and even then, in like a competitive sense, this feels like a kind of style of play that you need to be familiar with dooi to be used to it.
Yeah, it is extremely frustrating to play against, because you feel you just want to fight, and it takes a certain mindset, as you say.
I would like to play this video game. I purchased, please.
Exactly. As you can see, nosfa's making every effort to force a fight, but if he does, he might just die.
But there is potential here. At long last, he's out of rockets. That is actually very important. But doesn't get his rocket jump, nosfa. No! After all of that, doesn't quite get the height he's looking for. But dooi, I'm kind of surprised. Yeah, he has to go and get the rockets, and now he hasn't even got to put himself in harm's way or go somewhere obvious to get his rockets back.
No, but I do expect nosfa to pick up the pace now. I think he's kind of played doi's game, and he's not come out on top. So with 4 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go, should I say, I expect him to now put on more pressure. He's getting he missed his orb, so he's a little bit annoyed. Oh
yeah, I think that will affect anyone after that, because it's the fact that what it cost him too. It cost him a frag. It cost him he's been playing for 6.5 minutes to try and be so careful, and when he eventually lost the frag, it came down to an error. So a real heartbreaker, and now less than 3 minutes to go. Here comes dooi, and he's getting loads of damage looking for a rail, and he manages to hit its mark. nosfa goes down again. And now, is there a potential snowball effect here, where has he put enough frustration into nosfa, where now nosfa starts being a bit more predictable?
The answer is yes. Taking 2 rails there, dooi should be cutting off this rail to make sure that nosfa can't get on it, and does enough.
He's ready. No piercing sight needed to be ready for that angle. dooi is just... and when you play this level of frustration and you try to frustrate someone, I think you do get that sixth sense of where you're going to force someone. You know, dooi, he held that angle on stairs, and he just sat there. Like, he was 100% convinced nosfa would have gone up those stairs.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, he still gets a free item. So, you know, it's a win-win situation from dooi. Smart, getting out of there, no reason to take an unnecessary fight. 3-0 is more than enough for dooi to take this game home.
Yeah, if you're prepared to win a map 1-0, how about a 3-frag lead?
Exactly, back to playing that positional game, keeping nosfa away. Doesn't mind if he gets the Mega. He just wants to keep his own position.
And just a complete game plan put into perfect practice, really. There is the potential to come back here, though, especially now doi's taking a lot of damage.
But so did nosfa. That rocket was key, meaning he couldn't push in. Plus, he didn't have the orb anyway. Snoss is back to square one, and he's only got a minute and a half to go.
It looks like now Dooi is just going to play that defensive game and then some. Just looking to just elude him for as long as possible. Dawning on that 1 minute warning, and Dooi, just every time you seem to watch Dooi on Blood Covenant, I think you know what you're going to be getting. You know, especially when you see the Nyx, but what a difference a piercing sight can make too. There are so many ways that he tackles this map and this.
Well, I was going to say, I even think the the Nyx man probably worked out in his favour on this because he's used the piercing sight to great effect, and I think there was 1 or 2 times where nosfa hit some good shots and the Nyx might have died a lot lower than the visor was. So yeah, it's definitely worked in his favour. It's
quite the game plan, because if you think you can play an easier Dooi by removing a champion that seems quite troublesome, it essentially means like you almost have like you have to face a really tricky Dooi on this map, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Because if you ban one champion, he's just gonna pick another one. But hang on a minute, 30 seconds on the clock. There's a chance for a comeback now. If he gets a big chance, if he gets a good spawn right now, we might see one of the greatest comebacks we've seen in Pro League so far. This would be a insane turnaround.
Doi's got nothing. I think he's got the rocket, but nosfa has control. nosfa has a rail.
He has to find him though.
I think he knows where he is.
He's found him with a rocket. Oh, it did so much damage. I think that rocket was the finishing blow here, as Dooi does manage to play the frustration game, the long game, and he does it perfectly until the very end, where even if there was a sign of a comeback, it was too little too late.
Yeah. Low scoring game, very strategical, tactful, and nosfa played into Doi's hands. I think I understand why he played the way he did, but it was a bit too passive for me in the first 3 or 4 minutes, or however long they were having that kind of positional juke out. He knew what Dooi was going to do, and I think he could have made more of a move to work his way around, use the orb a bit more, potentially go through the low ground because Dooi was just maintaining high ground. Potentially sneaker heavy, using the heavy machine gun a bit more. So I think he allowed Dooi to play his game, and when Dooi plays his game, he just gets comfortable. You need to try and push Dooi out of his comfort zone a little bit more.
And then you actually look at the smaller things where, you know, for the first 3.5 minutes, this was the moment it all went wrong. And you really hate to see that kind of thing happen. When that was essentially a 6.5 minute moment. It took 3.5 minutes for nosfa to get his first railgun.
Exactly.
And it just came down to spawns at the very beginning.
So by the time
his best.
Exactly, by the time the duel started, there was only 3 minutes left. Like, so nosfa was always going to be in for a hard task when he didn't get that first frag.
And then you have to look at what happened afterwards. And it does. I think this might even be one of the recurring words of the day is discipline. It is very bold to play the way Dooi does.
Yes.
You know, if you're prepared to, because it almost didn't work at the last possible second when nosfa finally got that one frag, and it kind of almost, you know, half daisy chained into another one. And if he had a few more seconds, then maybe he would have been able to make the chase. Granted, I know Dooi did get that really good defensive rocket, so maybe that fight wouldn't have worked anyway. My point is, it was up until the last minute, there was a real potential for nosfa to make a comeback in the last 30 seconds, where Dooi had been in control for 9.5 minutes of that map.
Exactly.
A lot of players out there, I think, you know, would probably buckle under the pressure of that. You know, if you're prepared to win a map off like 1 or 2 frags, there is always a potential that all it takes for you is to die once, and then your whole game plan goes out the window.
Yeah, exactly. In particular, on a map like Blood Covenant, where you can string together 2 or 3 frags, trying to aim for a 1-0 victory is always a hard task. You have to play nigh on perfectly to make sure you don't slip up at all. And I know it's a simple game plan, but it's easy to take a wrong step or to overcommit to something. You know, you have to be, and as you said, you have to be disciplined. I don't think it is Rafa.
And in a shock horror, nosfa has become Rafa and Dooi has become Waz, and they have retransformed back into themselves. Now, Dooi with the Scale Bearer, I'm really excited to watch this.
He's good with the Scale Bearer, yeah, for sure.
I don't think I ever get tired of watching this champion. It's a huge part of this champion is, you know, no pun intended, because he's a big boy, comes down to the on this map, I think just the constant forward momentum and just how corridor heavy this map can be too. Certain situations where that ball rush is a real pain in the backside. nosfa having the advantage of utility. It's always going to come down to these totems. We've seen on these larger maps, if you really spread those totems around, you can kind of keep that 3 totem juggle quite consistently. And the immediate entry rail coming out from Dooi. It's going to do some immediate damage, but the heavy in the favor of nosfa. So far, they're going to consistently just trade. You know, I take one, you take one, but I feel like that might swiftly change. They've both got enough weapons to get it done. And now Dooi down the bottom. Actually, unfortunate to see that rail miss. That could be quite punishing for nosfa, as now Dewey's looking for another angle. Both rails are going to miss their mark. Going to top that up with a single totem. And Dewey instantly just catching nosfa in a bad place. So he just held W there.
Yeah, and that's what he needed to do. Like, when you're that tanky, you can just walk yourself in. And Dewey's really good at using the speed advantage. I know that doesn't sound like something Dewey would do, but using the speed of Scalebearer to capitalize upon those kind of mistakes.
And he's consistently looking for those totems too.
Yep.
And that's going to make a massive difference in this matchup. You know, it's Scalebearer, you're not used to seeing him go as fast as he does.
No, and it does cut you off guard, and I don't think a lot of people play him, so to come against him in practice might be quite rare as well.
You have to know the right people, like a Prawn or something,
Yeah.
to just play those unorthodox champions. But now, the bull rush being locked and loaded, that is scary, because Galena, you know, she's not a champion that has anything that resembles mobility. If she gets caught by that bull rush, she is as victim to it as it gets. That looks like Dewey. Eyes on the prize. Still no real delay in between the two items. So far, Dewey, I think, simply just looking for nosfa. But that is going to take down the totems, and that's information for nosfa. Even if he didn't hear the rocket too well, he knows the totem went down, so he knows where he's going to be. And as that heavy spawns, you can see nosfa doesn't want to overextend towards that heavy. He knows if there's a stacked Scalebearer jumping down with the bull rush ready to go, that's dangerous.
No, and you have to do a lot of damage to chip down his chip down a Scalebearer's stack. So nosfa, now he has everything he needs to do.
But
making the right decisions.
Dewey with the frag lead means Dewey can do what Dewey wants to do, which is sit there and play obnoxiously defensive. But it works. You know, that is the fundamental point, that there is a level of defensiveness that comes from Dewey that you rarely see anywhere. But now he has the lead. Spring the trap, bro! And the trap gets sprung. Unfortunately, the rockets don't quite hit their mark. By all accounts, I think nosfa kind of got a little bit fortunate there just for the angle itself. He, by all means, I think should have died in that fight.
Yeah, it was a little bit messy. Missing the follow-up rocket, even though it was a hard one, means nosfa can escape, bouncing out the door. But good intention showed by nosfa.
Information for me if you're Dewey. He fell for the trap. The trap did work. Yeah, it didn't get the frag, but the point is, nosfa, he walked right into it. And that's what Dewey wants to do. If he has a comfortable stack, he will sit round a weird corner and just wait for you to go around. And if he has the bull rush available, it is the extended arm of that kind of playstyle. Heavy's going to spawn, but Dewey wants to go in first just to make sure it's extra safe. Doesn't double back. There is a potential here to get some totems if he's looking for them. Yeah, he just checks it. Like he's going to take the extra couple of seconds to just check that corridor and take down the totems when necessary. He got 2 totems in one, which means that when nosfa drops a totem down in a fight, he's not going to have that crazy level of overstack that he would have if he had all 3.
No, and I think the thing about Dewey is as an opponent is that as we go into a fight here, Dewey does hit back-to-back rails, which is nice. But as I was saying, I think Dewey plays a very methodical style, and so he's quite predictable, but when he goes into combat so quietly that you don't exactly know where he is, even though you know what he's doing. And that's, I think, what's partly frustrating, is you know roughly where he is, you know roughly what he's doing. He doesn't really catch you off surprise in a traditional sense. 3 totems down there, and he nearly jumps on them.
But instead, he's able to take them all out, and these are some excellent rails from Dewey. I think in part of it, you know, none of these rails are crazy reactionary. It's more like he knows where nosfa is going to be, and he's doing such a good job of eluding nosfa that he has extra time to set up these shots. Here comes the bull rush! Set him up, knock him down. Nosfa's going to drop, making it 2-0. 5-minute warning's going to get ticked off. And this is just what Dewey, he just plays that slow game, sets it up, and then perfectly executes the fight.
Yeah, and you're completely right. Like, none of the rails are hard, and the reason for that is because Dewey wants to make his life as simple as possible. And so he will work into a position where he has an easy angle to hit those rails, just like that. He plays the corners, he plays a positional game, and just wants an easy life. That's what Dewey wants.
The things we do for an easy life. Anyway, potential for a fight up here, Dewey, though. Why overextend if I have 2 frags? That's like 20 in Dewey's eyes.
Ultimately, it's just a low-risk playstyle. The way he aims, the way he positions, the way he takes fights, is just as low risk as possible.
And it's keeping nosfa insanely behind, to the point where he's kind of having to just take the small items, which in turn actually makes his position a little bit more predictable, because he's having to go to certain locations just to get a basic stack back up.
Yeah.
And that's making Dooi a little bit more comfortable here, just running the full cycle of the items. Now, we have seen on the previous map how close it got. You know, this was essentially all of Blood Covenant. nosfa just needed 30 seconds and he was making a comeback. So Dooi, you know, he has to stay true to this style all the way through, but he's doing it so far. No, nosfa! Oh,
no.
bye, see you later. That's a ring out right there. And he's just, right now, he's just getting caught off guard now. How many times is Dooi literally just running around the corner and bam, there's nosfa.
Yeah, nosfa. No, I mean, Dewey's done a great job of maintaining control of the item. nosfa's trying to chip him down, and that's the reason why Dooi picks Scale Bearer. Is because
he's gonna finish it. Oh!
Right through him.
And turned into paste. This is a much bigger lead than we've seen Dooi before, though, which just makes his life so much easier. Fresh off the spawn, the totems have done such little for nosfa so far because, you know, in these fights, when the fight finally breaks out, nosfa's not even in a position for the totem to make a difference. Doi's already mid ball rush, he's already done so much damage, he's not getting healed. If he does drop a totem, he's not able to overstack because how consistently is Dooi just checking the corners, checking the corridors, he's getting rid of the setup. 100 damage, the fight was insane, looking for the final rail, but nosfa too far away. If there was a ball rush, I guaranteed he'd have pressed the key there.
You can see how...
Oh no! He's dead. Well, he's still got the kill though. Worth it.
That's
always.
worth.
I'd say so.
I mean, I don't think it was because it completely resets the game when he was in so much control.
No, but it looked cool.
But it looked good, yeah, star points.
Exactly. Like, I agree 100%. But you have to look at how he recovers. You know, it has reset the game, but at the same time, it's time taken. Some really good rails there from nosfa.
But you can see how stacked he is still because he's a Scale Bearer, and that's what happens.
Dooi may be in a tricky position. He has got the ball rush. I feel like every ounce of Dewey's being was really not wanting to use the ball rush. You know, because the ball rush to get out of there, he would have taken like heavily reduced damage, yeah, but I think it was like, you know, if we have to concede a frag, so be it. I'm going to spawn with a fresh stack. I might have the chance to get some equipment, and then I'll have my ball rush.
I think nosfa for me needs to take this and just go aggressive. Like, otherwise he's going to run out of time against Dooi.
I mean, Dooi, like, actually, all jokes aside, Dooi jumping off that ledge was really the best case scenario for nosfa.
Like, yeah, and then that's the only reason he's on the board right now. So he needs to, Dooi needs to be careful. He doesn't really have time, but he needs to get this heavy. Sorry.
Rockets are making a lot of noise, and noise is what Dooi needs to slip the net. Oh, and he springs the rocket trap, combos it into a rail.
Doesn't need to push in. Smart play just to run away.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's almost out of time. He needs to get a frag within the next 10 seconds.
1 minute warning.
He knows where he is because this is pretty much the best place to stand. It's got multiple exit points.
And Dewey's doing the same thing. He sets that initial trap, gets the damage, and then no need to go in. You know, let's just keep nosfa behind, force him to retreat. It's going to take him at least 10 seconds to get out of there. And by the time he's out...
Good triple back there.
Okay, overstack totems. There's an opportunity to get a frag here. Just needs to hit one more. Dewey's got to be really careful with his movement, actually. Still trying to take out the totems as he runs. But again, this is the game to run away. I mean, a frag every 10 seconds on a map this size?
No way.
I don't see it.
Yeah. Dewey's definitely done enough here. nosfa might get another frag if he's lucky, but Dewey's just running for his life. And Scale Bearer is quick. Like, Scale Bearer is quick. And he has a ball rush.
I think that's so common of the large champs, with the exception of Keel. Yours, oh, he's not even letting him get that kill. Not even letting him get that frag. Rude boy Dooi is going to get the second map here, and that was a wonderful display. And it's really impressive to me just seeing how many champions allow Dooi to play his style, but how the style changes up significantly enough.
Dooi didn't even touch the lightning gun. 5%, 2 of 36 cells. That's the type of game he plays. Standing on corners on this map with the rocket launcher and then taking the middle ground, taking his angles. 76% rail against a player that I said was missing easy rails in the first game. And the reason for that, as we said, is he makes his life simple. He takes strong positions where he knows there's an easy shot to be had and often catches you off guard because he plays so slow and so quietly. So
I want to make the observation too that Dooi mentioned at the end of the game. He's got to be right back and grab a fresh drink.
A fresh drink?
So he wasn't even drinking a fresh drink while he's been playing this. So he's been doing all this stuff. Can you imagine how many ring outs he would have got if he had a fresh drink in this map instead? I'm saying, watch out for map 3, man.
Depends what he's drinking.
Watch out for
Drunk
that
driver.
Oh yeah, well, I would assume. I'm not even going to humour that conversation, I suppose. But this was actually the moment where
that was a turning point. Yeah.
There was a turning point there because it got rid of all the stack, it reset things. It just looked really funny.
But it's very telling that it took again a dooi mistake for nosfa to get back into the game, and this is a player that you had a lot of praise for, and rightly so, had a lot of praise for at the start, and against a dooi who often is again very much overlooked as a player because of the way he plays and the way his aim can be quite shaky and inconsistent. It took dooi mistake of ringing himself out for nosfa to even get a sniff of a look in that game. So it's impressive at the end of the day.
But what I was mentioning at the end of the second map is this idea that dooi has a distinct style, but you can see like the little details and the changes of that style depending on the champion that he's picking. And like he has always been a player 100% of the way that was not afraid to play Quake champions as Quake champions, to really take the specific champion aspect with the passives, the stack differences, the important abilities that exist. I know there are players out there that were way focused on, I'm going to play Quake and the abilities are going to be the extended arm, and like that is the way a lot of people.
It's kind of the way CNZ was playing earlier, right? And that's as you rightly say, it's almost the flip side of that, where dooi tailors the way he wants to play very strongly.
He has always done that. Like, since the round-based days of Duel, and now we're in time limit, the champions and their tools have always been a massive part of his own game plan, and he welcomes that. But you can see the absolute difference in how you can approach. And now we're going into Veil of Nath. He's got Keel. He has that giant stack. He's got the grenades that are just damaging. They are spammable. It's area denial. I honestly think that, granted, it might be a bit different. It's harder to play a constant runaway game on Veil because of just how many avenues you have to move around on a map like this. So maybe, dooi can't exactly sit in one location and sit there the whole game. However, he has the tools to make himself extremely dangerous every time nosfa crosses his path. And it's, playing defensively is just one thing for dooi. How many times did dooi literally just catch nosfa around a corner or something? It's about springing the traps, and that's what Keel can destroy you with.
Yeah, for sure. And the grenades, as much as erratic as they can be, they can change a fight so quickly if you hit a lucky one, a direct, so always got to be wary when you're going up against a Keel that's a factor.
But for nosfa, to be honest, I'm glad we're observing nosfa first, because we've been watching so much of dooi for these two maps. It's an opportunity really to, at some point, just see how nosfa gets around, and there it is. He goes for the chase, and he just eats a bunch of grenades.
Yeah, and that felt like a little bit of a frustration from the previous map, because dooi wasn't low in the slightest, and nosfa was pushing into a Keel with grenades. That's what happens.
The aim from dooi today, I really got to say, it's been highly impressive.
Yeah.
So many of these fights where he's just been he's going for the right weapon combinations and he's comboing them into each other, but he's not missing any of the shots, and the health is just deleting. Potentially might jinx him now, though. nosfa out 1v1s him now, the railgun.
No, he is a heavily rail-based player, and so if you can match that and work off his positioning, that gives you a good chance to get back into the game, and that's what we saw of nosfa there.
Now dooi back with a giant stack, made even bigger thanks to the heavy that he's just collected. There is a little bit of a delay in between the two. Not as great as it could be, but just looking at the stack difference, it's something that dooi just kind of has in droves all the time. He's consistently more stacked above.
Plenty of time though before the mega, so there's real no need from nosfa here to push in unless he hits a good rail.
Just going to go forward. dooi already preemptively had the shots. Oh, just short.
But he picked up the mega as well, so it just showed you how much damage had got put out by nosfa there. I thought he was too late because he had let dooi pick that up, but still.
nosfa didn't want to actually take a shot. He did not want to give his position away. dooi wasn't
wow,
looking in the right
that's
direction.
a lot of damage.
Yeah, wow. Turret MVP. Looks likely that he's going to go down, but nosfa, one of the wins there, he did so much damage in that fight. And now the time was wasted enough trying to take out the turret that if he hit that rail...
I think the turret alone did nearly 150 damage. Well, that was a big boy turret.
He's going in for more rails. LG's going to push him away from the heavy. This might be Dewey's avenue to get back into it, but he's got to be so careful. They go through the LG again. Both players doing the same thing to each other, and there's that flick rocket. It's going to take out nosfa and allow just enough time to go in and take that heavy as a nice chunky reward for a good 1v1 fight. And now Dooi keeping his stack nice and healthy.
Dewey's not even really using the grenades. Oh, there we go. But I mean, like, as you say, like he just understands the benefits of his playstyle with the heavy champions and uses the grenades for those tight choke points and when they're most impactful. Often see a lot of players kind of using the grenades a fair amount, but not Dooi.
He really needs to get himself some rocket ammo. Yeah, that's why he's doubled back. If you're going to play Kiel on this map, a rocket launcher is mandatory. And now he has the frag lead, and knowing Dooi like we do, that's all he needs.
Yeah, now the game's kind of settled down a bit. Dooi can get into his rhythm. But nosfa's picking up some good positioning, actually.
Yeah, not only for the damage on the rail, but where the position it forced Dooi into. But that rocket, 100 damage. Really impressive flick, and he gets the pineapple. Actually almost bounced it off that pillar into what was just short of a direct. That grenade's going to bounce straight back, though. And now he makes the push. Is it going to work? Doesn't get the rocket damage he was after. It's going to allow nosfa to tie the knot, but guess what? I'm a heavy champion. I've got a big stack, and I know you're weak. Dooi going nice and aggressive, but I actually think that nosfa, he was ready for it.
Yeah, he was. Probably should have came away with the kill there. Dooi was... Whoa, what a rail!
Wow! Right in the soles of the feet. And he's looking for another opportunity here. nosfa, he's hit some fantastic rails so far. Here's that game. Who's going to get the heavy? Who can get the heavy? nosfa doesn't want to give it up too easily, and Dooi's able to run in and collect.
Yeah, Dooi's done a good job of bullying him off the items. But nevertheless, nosfa is alive. I don't think Dooi has a rail, which is why he can't come into these open areas, and that has to be the next priority after he's got this mega.
Yeah, there's a lot of respect, I think, coming out from nosfa. He's very rarely going anywhere if there's even a risk that Dooi's around the corner. I think he's been ambushed so many times throughout the series that he's well aware that's the style.
No, exactly. He's 100% he's recognised exactly what Dooi wants to do and is now playing much safer than he was before. Ouch!
Oh, yeah, that's immediate opening damage. Made a little bit worse thanks to the acid that nosfa stepped in, but
it's always difficult because Dooi still doesn't have a rail, so he can't push in, because if he does, he's going to take way more damage and probably not even going to get the kill. He can't close the gap because he's Kiel.
But now Dooi's going to have a play of, wow, did hear the rocket and reacted, but thankfully for Dooi, did get technically caught off guard, but he didn't make the, didn't actually connect with him.
And nosfa's doing a good job of defending the rail at the moment.
This is definitely a game of who plays first, because for nosfa to sit and defend the rail means that he's not able to get any of the major pickups, and Dooi at the same time understands that he's taking heavy in mega at the cost of a rail. It's like which player values which more, but now we're going more into the end of the game. We're going to find out quite quickly.
No, and that rail forced Dooi back a little bit more. Means he has to be a lot more cautious. And the fact is, yes, nosfa isn't getting any items, but he's hitting rails every time Dooi's coming anywhere near him, meaning Dooi's the one has to be careful back to defend that rail.
Actually, a nice little victory there for nosfa. Able to run in and take the heavy. Force Dooi, get some damage out at the same time. Mega is just about to spawn, and is Dooi actually using that as a... Yeah, he's using that as a green light.
Finally got a rail. He'll be much more confident to come out in the open now.
With the mega about to spawn, nosfa should be able to get in and out. Dooi understands that he's not got as much of a stack to work with anymore. Maybe these grenades can do it. That's information. I'm pretty sure he knew he was up there anyway, but he has a little bit of an indication as to where. Now the jump pad gets used, doubles back. Too much of a risk, doesn't want to over push. Nice. Lovely rail, unreturned, and that's what's important. Look at all that armor that Dooi is currently working with. Oh, doesn't quite get the rail he's after. But the point is, he still has more of a stack here, and he's still pushing it in. The rail connects again. nosfa's got to be really careful here. Here come the rockets from underneath.
A tray. Dooi definitely comes out on top. Now we got the rail. You can see the pressure that Dooi's able to put on.
Here's the damage coming out from the turrets. That's going to be a little bit of information here, but Dooi keeping his stack so much chunkier. Now goes in for the rail. Both players land a good one. nosfa in danger now, only 24 HP. Pushing forward is a risky business. But now what does nosfa do? He hasn't got any health. dooi swaps to the machine gun. Importantly for nosfa, gets an unreturned rail. That's going to force him away just a little bit, but is it going to be enough to make a difference? Here comes the fight. dooi missing 2 rails. Either one of those rails would have been potentially a green light to go in with the offense. And it feels like now 1.5 minutes on the clock. dooi, he's dishing out more damage, but all it's going to take is one fight to go in the favor of nosfa. In turn, perhaps maybe nosfa's play is to get one frag and sit on it.
Yeah, well, nosfa is the one definitely on the back foot here. His stack is non-existent compared to dooi, so has to be way more careful than dooi is at the moment.
Runs in and gets the heavy. The question is, what is the price he pays? Not a huge amount so far, but I just feel like dooi, as long as he maintains the high ground and the positioning to always get damage no matter when anything spawns, he's pretty much winning. Now we're in this one frag territory. Guarantee this is going to come down to one single frag by the end of this map. And now, oh my word, that was a trap.
It's a one frag game now, so neither player's in a particular rush to push it. Happy to take overtime.
Oh, but nosfa, that's going to add up at some point. The damage he's taking, he really can't afford to. And dooi, he's just in the better position all the time. nosfa is the one that's currently trying to kind of slip in and out, get a rail here and there, but dooi, when he has to lick his wounds, he doesn't retreat to a small health bubble, he goes to a mega.
But you can see also the way, again, methodical play by dooi.
He's dropped down.
Just taking the major items, waiting for nosfa to make a mistake.
dooi
Nearly was.
Yeah, dropping down and going near LG room. That was somewhat of an opening. nosfa got a really impressive amount of damage and the tri-bolt. Hang on a minute, just like that, he's been able to even the odds. This might come down to this heavy. Who's going to get the heavy? No! He's knocked him away from the heavy, and now it risks being way too dangerous. The sudden death, it's going to activate. dooi goes in, nosfa misses the rail!
Oh my word. Game-winning rail that you would expect nosfa to hit.
He's still in a better position to get the frag than dooi. dooi is weak. dooi is in
Smells
trouble.
blood.
Oh no! He misses the rail again! Oh, these are some crucial misses from nosfa. Every rail you miss gives dooi an opportunity to go and get a small health bubble, a small armor, anything to get the stack back. Oh, look for the shot! Fortunately, dooi doesn't hit its mark either. Oh, nosfa!
Oh, he still has time to get the mega though.
Is that going to cost him the mega positioning, though? dooi springs the trap! He's close range. Looks like he should be able to finish the job, and he finally gets the frag at the last minute. That's going to still be a victory for dooi. But fortunately for nosfa, at the last second, he snuck a map in there, and it's going to be 2-1 rather than 3-0. Both players get points.
Well played by nosfa, showing good discipline not to overextend in a period of time where it could have been very frustrated. Also, really good control of the rail. You can see that nosfa had much fewer major items. He only had three megas, for instance, but controlling that rail meant that dooi couldn't do anything. Yeah, he was running the items, but he wasn't be able to do any damage. nosfa was the one continually chipping away at dooi. And because of that, dooi never felt confident pushing in. Definitely probably could have made riskier plays, and it came back to bite him in the arse in the end. But yeah, nosfa showing some good discipline.
I was really concerned for nosfa at the end. I know that dooi didn't have the stack, and ultimately dooi was always the one in the terrible position during the entirety of sudden death, but those missed rails made me sweat. They really did, because the nosfa, most of those rails, all he had to do was just hit one of them and bam, the game's over. And every time he missed a rail, it gives dooi time to just disengage, get potentially some of the all-important pickups that you need. But yeah, that was a calculated Veil of Nath. You rarely see Veil of Nath go as slow as that one did. But I mean, I think that's just the nature of dooi. He wants to take the game into a snail's pace, and he'll make it happen kicking and screaming. nosfa, the composure all the way up until the last minute to play that game. And I saw a lot less frustration coming out from nosfa on that final map. It's just unfortunate, this is the only chance they're going to get to play in this stage, really, or realistically. So, that was his chance to take out dooi. dooi's able to take him out and get that win. But he had to fight for it until the very end.
Yeah, there definitely was less frustration. That's because he had the rail advantage. There was always a way for him to deal damage. And because of that, he just felt comfortable. He didn't look like he was particularly stressed or under pressure. dooi wasn't forcing the issue, and so nosfa was able just to run the back rooms, control the rail, and wait for dooi to make the mistake.
So, I mean, nosfa's always in a decent position when it comes to points. So he's, the fact that he got some points for the one-map win here, he's going to be feeling probably not so good that he lost, but at least he got points. In his position, that's really, trying to stay within that kind of high mid-level, the high echelon of the Americas, being safe from relegation, just being able to place as high as you can for the stage finals to come. And in Dewey's position, the fact that he was able to secure a series win when he was a newcomer to Stage 2 as he won his relegation matches, that's also very good for him. So I think both players kind of win here.
I think Dewey's one of those players that, no disrespect, that everyone will target of winning against Dewey. Just the way he plays, I think you always feel you're in with a chance because it's never a big loss against Dewey. You never feel outgunned by Dewey. He's got good aim, but you don't feel outgunned by Dewey. And because of that, I think nosfa will feel a bit upset. But nevertheless, like particularly the second map, Dewey stomped. And so he's as you said, he's come on leaps and bounds, definitely developed his game. And yeah, it's slow pace, but he's built around his strengths, his skill sets, and the champions he likes to play.
Okay, so that officially marks the halfway point of today's show, but we've got 4 more series where that came from. Thank you all so much for watching so far. We're going to go for a short break and set up our next series of games. This is week number 6 of the Quake Pro League Stage 2, and we will be right back.